As organizations adopt Agile, Scrum, one of the very first steps is to create at least one Scrum team. For the most part, we can map the classic waterfall roles with the Scrum roles. In Scrum, the development team is responsible for building the product. The developers, testers, designers, or anyone else involved in the day-to-day building of the product. Then there's the product owner responsible for the vision of the product, the roadmap, the backlog, the product backlog, responsible to create user stories, ensure that the requirements are correct, detailed, prioritizes the backlog, talks to stakeholders, communicates constantly with the development team. Then there's the stakeholders, anyone who has some sort of interest in the project. Customers, marketing, sales, human resource managers, upper management. Then there's the Scrum Master. And the problem with the Scrum Master doesn't really have a counterpart in the waterfall roles. And what do organizations typically do? They take project managers and convert them into Scrum Masters. Different roles, different responsibilities. Not impossible to convert, but extremely challenging to transition from a project management role to a Scrum Master role. But in this video, I'm going to give you 6 critical steps that you need to follow to smoothen this transition. Number 1, mindset shift. Here are some key differences between the mindset of a project manager versus one of a Scrum Master. The project manager knows what is best. The Scrum Master understands that the team knows what is best. A project manager needs to make decisions, whereas a Scrum Master understands that the team needs to make these decisions. A project manager focuses on the status. A Scrum Master focuses on the team health. A project manager is the connector and translator, whereas a Scrum Master is the enabler. A project manager is in the middle of everything, whereas a Scrum Master is a servant leader who observes and supports the team. These are the differences that I've observed in terms of a Scrum Master versus a project manager. But obviously, not all Scrum Masters and project managers think exactly like that. I'm just sharing the most common and typical differences in terms of mindset that I've observed and experienced. Next step is to really understand what a Scrum Master is and what a Scrum Master does. You can't enter a career whose foundation and job description you don't understand. So the first thing you need to do is really understand the Scrum role. And the best place to start is the Scrum Guide 2020. Read it multiple times. I think it's 20 pages. You'll get different insights each time you read that little guide. You'll really understand what the Scrum Master does and what Scrum is. Then I suggest moving on to an excellent book that I've read a few years ago, from J.J. Sutherland, Scrum, the art of doing twice the work in half the time. Really good book. And with these 2 things, the Scrum Guide and the book, honestly, that's everything you need to at least start supporting one team. You see, you'll get all the knowledge required reading these books, but now you need practice. And the best way to improve your skills, get experience, is supporting one team. Don't be afraid. You already have all the knowledge. You should be ready. So dive into it. Support one team. If you have experienced Scrum Masters, Agile coaches in the organization, please schedule one-to-one sessions with them. Get that knowledge, talk to them, ask questions, plenty of questions. Assist, observe, ask them if you can assist their meetings, their events, all their sessions, and observe, take notes, really understand what it takes to be a good Scrum Master, an effective Scrum Master, and even an Agile coach. Number 3, don't try to be both project manager and Scrum Master at the same time. There's a trend of organization hiring a single person and telling that person to do both the role of a Scrum Master and a project manager at the same time. Don't do that. It's a waste of talent, because this person, it's impossible for this person to do these 2 different roles at the same time for a single team or for multiple teams. You can't do that. You really need, these roles are hard to do. They are complex roles, and you really need to focus in terms of improving your skills, either as a Scrum Master or a project manager. I don't really recommend to do both, because doing both, you won't be able to really be good and effective at both at the same time. But if you focus on a single thing, focus on a Scrum Master role or a project manager role, you will be an effective and really speed up your career in terms of where you want to go as a project manager or a Scrum Master. So if your organization is telling you to do both roles, tell them no, doesn't make any sense. Go for a single role. I suggest doing for a Scrum Master role because that's the future, that's what I believe, or even an Agile coach. But if you still want to be a project manager, go with a project manager role. Number 4, let go of status. You often see project managers focusing on tasks and status. Who is working on this task? Why is this person taking so long? Why are we missing deadlines? That's totally fine when you are a project manager. But if you transition to a Scrum Master role, try to shift your mindset, your focus on, instead of focusing on status and tasks, focus on people and interactions. Observe, pay attention to team health, chemistry, motivation levels. Do people feel empowered, self-managed, self-organized? Are people doing their best work? Build an environment, set up an environment where people really feel empowered so that they can do their best work, really unleash their potential. Number 5, learn how to appreciate feedback. This one is huge tip, the best tip in this video. Feedback is super underrated. People don't like asking for feedback, and when they receive feedback, especially negative feedback, they ignore that person, ignore the feedback and completely reject it. As a Scrum Master, you need to constantly be improving your skills, growing as a Scrum Master. And I personally feel that the best way to do that is getting feedback from others, stakeholders, your team, sponsors, anyone who is involved or can see you doing your work, other Scrum Masters, Agile coaches. And you should have a system in place to collect that feedback, continuously be collecting that feedback every week, every month, 6 weeks, every year. And when you receive that feedback, first, thank that person and go through the feedback, maybe together, maybe alone, ask questions, follow-up questions, clarifications. And once you collect all the feedback, you can build a plan on ways to improve. How can you improve based on that feedback? Obviously, all the feedbacks are not equal in terms of level and quality, but there should be some really good feedback, things that you can really improve, that are shared by your team, other Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, when they are observing you and interacting with you. Then the team should also be collecting feedback, same as you. Scrum has already a feedback mechanism in place. The Scrum events, the retrospective, the review. All these events should be effective, should be run effectively. And Scrum Master, as a Scrum Master, you should ensure that these sessions or facilitators are ran effectively so that we can collect feedback continuously, at least once every sprint, and ensure that people understand the value beyond feedback, that the team understands the power beyond giving and receiving feedback. And my last tip, final tip of this video is becoming a servant leader. This one is a hard pill to swallow when you're transitioning from a project manager role to a Scrum Master. You see, a Scrum Master, people don't report to you. You can no longer tell people what to do overtime, complete this task now. You can no longer do that. And this lack of control, this lack of status can really mess up the transition from a project manager role to a Scrum Master role. Servant leadership relies on the principle that managers exist to serve their employees instead of the other way around. Leaders realize that their interests take a back seat compared to the interests, hopes, needs, goals of the employees. And the shift in way of working really makes employees trust the leaders more. We feel safe having an open conversation with the leaders, suggesting new ideas, and because of this, the team organization can build better products and services. Which brings me to my next point. If you want more tips, insights on Agile, Scrum, personal growth, click on the video that stands out the most on the screen right now, and I'll see you in a few seconds.